Thank you, Betty. It's very nice to be back in Washington, and particularly to be with Betty Ford and to be working with her. We had dinner together last night and talked about a lot of things, about our families, about how glad we were to be back in Washington, and also we talked about leaving Washington involuntarily before either one of us wanted to.
That was former First Lady Rosalynn Carter, March 7th, 1994. Rosalynn Carter and Betty Ford were meeting reporters at the National Press Club. The two former First Ladies were promoting the need for mental health and substance abuse benefits in the health care reform package that was then being debated on Capitol Hill. It was announced recently that Rosalynn Carter has dementia. We're using this episode of C-SPAN's podcast, The Weekly, to look back at her longtime advocacy of mental health care. But with a unique perspective, we focus on her collaboration with and friendship with fellow First Lady Betty Ford. Returning to that 1994 event on mental health at the National Press Club, here's former First Lady Betty Ford.
This is a particularly special occasion for me in sharing this press conference with Mrs. Rosalynn Carter. And I have long admired her dedication in addressing the mental health problems that are confronting our country. And I've always enjoyed our previous opportunities that we have had to work together, and this is just one more of those very nice occasions.
And here's Rosalynn Carter again from the same event.
But what Betty Ford and I are trying to do is to help focus national opinion on the benefits of national health care reform and the inclusion of mental health and substance abuse benefits.
2 years later, in October 1996, Rosalynn Carter and Betty Ford appeared together on a panel discussing the lives of First Ladies. The event was held in Bakersfield, California. Here first is Rosalynn Carter.
My major project that I have worked on since my husband was governor of Georgia is mental health. And when I started working on mental health issues and had a meeting, the only people that would come were government employees because my husband was governor. And everything has changed, and I'm so excited about it. In the last 10 or 15 years, everything has changed in the way mental illnesses are treated. And we have learned that mental illnesses are diagnosable. They can be treated. People can live more normal lives. So many people can live normal lives.
And here is Betty Ford from that same 1996 panel.
When Rosalynn was talking about her mental health work, we had worked in Washington several years ago together on including mental health and substance abuse. And unfortunately, that legislation passed it on mental health, and to my disappointment, did not include substance abuse. But we'll keep working on that.
Both former First Ladies even cited their work together when the other wasn't present. Like on January 20th, 2007, 30 years to the day after her husband was inaugurated, Rosalynn Carter gave the keynote address at a conference looking back at the Carter presidency. The event was held at the University of Georgia.
Betty Ford became, after we got home, a real ally with me on working on for mental health issues, because she was working on substance abuse, or substance use, I think is the politically correct thing to say now. But money for substance use and mental health are all in the same pot. So we would go to Washington. She would get the Republicans together. I would get the Democrats together, and we had some real. I think we were effective, and sometimes we still neither one got what we wanted, but it was fun working with her.
Later in 2007, in July, Rosalynn Carter testified to a House hearing on mental health legislation. Again, she mentioned Betty Ford.
Today I join many individuals and hundreds of national organizations calling for an end to the fundamental stigmatizing inequity of providing far more limited insurance coverage for mental health care than for treatment of any other illnesses. And again, I join forces with my friend Betty Ford in urging prompt action on this important issue. Betty and I have lobbied many times for this legislation and for care.
And once again, during a November 2013 interview for C-SPAN's original series on First Ladies, Rosalynn Carter cited lobbying efforts with Betty Ford.
After we left the White House, Betty and I would go to Washington. She would get Republicans and I would get Democrats, and we made some progress.
Betty Ford, too, brought up Rosalynn Carter, even when she wasn't there. Like in August 1994, Betty Ford was honored for her efforts against alcohol and drug abuse and her own struggle against the two. Her husband, former President Gerald Ford, sat next to her. She was asked about mental health and national health care reform.
I have been on the Hill several times. Both Rosalynn Carter and I have testified before the Senate committee, and we've been on the offices of the leaders in the Hill. And we have carried our message. We can't always make them vote the way we want, but we certainly have carried our message.
On July 12, 2011, a funeral service was held for Betty Ford. In Palm Desert, California, at St. Margaret's Episcopal Church, Rosalynn Carter gave the eulogy.
In 1984, we both participated in a panel at the Ford Presidential Library on the role of First Ladies. We found that our interest in addictive diseases and mental health came together in many ways, and that we could be a stronger force if we worked as partners. And we did for many years. Sometimes traveling to Washington to lobby for our causes, especially parity for mental health and substance use disorders in all health insurance plans. And I am so glad she lived to see this happen. We didn't get everything we wanted, but we got a good start.
And now, a bonus clip. We opened with former First Ladies Betty Ford and Rosalynn Carter at the National Press Club in 1994. In December 2001, Rosalynn Carter was back at the National Press Club to discuss mental health issues. She got this question and got a laugh.
Is there anything like a former First Ladies Club? Do you ever have contact with the previous First Ladies, such as Betty Ford or Mrs. Bush? Barbara Bush.
There's not a First Ladies Club that I know of. I'm not included. But we've become really good friends with the Fords, and Betty Ford and I have been to Washington, for instance, to lobby the money for substance abuse and mental health is all in the same pot, and she would take me to see the Republicans and I would take her to see the Democrats. It's been a while since we did that, but we talk with the Fords pretty regularly and see them, but they're the only ones really that we have any contact much with.
That's it for this episode of C-SPAN's Podcast The Weekly. A reminder, you can do your own searches in the C-SPAN Video Library. Just go to cspan.org and use the search bar on top. There are many more appearances by First Ladies Rosalynn Carter and Betty Ford, and many more times mental health issues have been discussed. Plus, learn more. Take a deep dive into our original series, First Ladies, also on our website. Just type First Ladies into the search bar on top. Thanks for listening, and happy searching.